prepares for its 43rd annual film festival, an event reverently described by its Director General as an international consecration of cinema. Well, yes, but it's not always easy to consecrate cinema when the sun is shining and you're obliged to go to the pictures even before the morning croissant has had time to settle. It's 8:15 in the morning and I'm just going to the press show of Alan Parker's Come See the Paradise. Nobody should be asked to go to the pictures at 8:15 in the morning. It's positively decadent, but a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Come See the Paradise is actually a very simple tale that combines a love story with an expose of the ill treatment and internment of Japanese Americans in the United States during World War II. The protagonists are Dennis Quaid, a blue-collar worker and union activist, and his wife, Tamlin Tomita, the daughter of a Japanese family in Los Angeles. In what is, for Alan Parker, an unusually romantic and tender picture, both are very good. The film itself is certainly too long and too leisurely, but in the end, Parker makes it work, just, because he does succeed in making you care what happens to these people. You caused a lot of fuss in America with Mississippi Burning. You upset the blacks. Now are you going to upset the whites with this one? Because you're going to make them feel guilty, aren't you? I mean, they're going to have to remember something which they'd rather forget.
Well, it's good for them to feel guilty. I mean, yeah, I don't mind upsetting them. I mean, it's not about upsetting
people.
No, I mean, no, it's true. No, it's not about upsetting. It's just that I don't see that. I mean, I don't think it's as provocative, to be honest with you, as Mississippi Burning. I don't think the same kind of fuss will come with this film. It's primarily, for me, it's always a love story first, you know, and the predicament actually comes second. And I think it's a very different film to Mississippi Burning.
This is probably the most romantic movie you've ever made. Are you getting mellower now you're a grandfather?
Yeah, it's true. So ever since my daughter had this baby, I seem to have looked at the world in a totally different way. Yeah.
But it is a softer film, isn't it? More gentle film.
I think it's better in that respect, yeah. I think I've tended to shout too loud sometimes in the past, you know, and I'm just more understanding of what I think I can do and maybe what I can't do. And in that respect, I think it's better, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for coming with me, Lily.
It's okay. I'm scared to come on my own as well.
Do you think they'll shoot us?
No, of course not.
Do you think they'll send us back to Japan?
I don't know. I truly don't know, Frankie.
I've never been to Japan.
Me neither.
It was only the Japanese that they interned, wasn't it? They didn't do it to the Italian Americans. What was the reason for that?
The Pacific coast, which is where most of the Japanese Americans were concentrated, was a war zone. And there was an incredible amount of hysteria, obviously, after Pearl Harbor. They thought the Japanese were going to invade any minute. But the real reason is racism. They were scared of them economically. The Japanese Americans, you know, in 1941, end of 41, beginning of 42, were becoming very successful in California. And they crushed them economically by sending them to the camps.
You know, a couple of years ago, you said quite seriously that you were thinking of giving up directing and just going back to writing alone because making a film as a director just took too much of your time. Do you still feel that?
Well, it's really hard, you know. I'm going from film to film at the moment. I'm in a pattern, which I think is important. I mean, I think that so many directors are so precious about what they do, you know. To do a film every 5 years is ridiculous. I am able to get films made, and I'm interested in so many subjects that I think it's a great period for me to make films, and I'm going to do as many as I can. But they are so hard, I mean physically hard, that I don't think it's the job of an old man, you know. I mean, I went to see Kurosawa's Dreams at the festival, and you know, he should have stopped when he was 70, in my opinion. But it's too hard. I mean, he can hardly walk. How can he get up every morning and direct a film?
The centre of activity at Cannes is La Croisette, the main drag that runs beside the sea. Here, senior citizens and others take the air and look on with amusement and bemusement at the frenetic activities of the film folk. Not that the loftier film folk actually stay in Cannes. Clint Eastwood, for example, hangs out up the road at the Hotel du Cap, which is so expensive that if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford to stay there. I mean, £625 a night, come on. For the third time, Eastwood has a film in competition this year. White Hunter Black Heart is the study of an obsession, the obsessive desire of a film director, Clint Eastwood, playing a thinly disguised John Huston, to kill an elephant. It's based on a novel by Peter Viertel, which itself was based on Viertel's experiences in Africa when ostensibly he and Huston were preparing to film The African Queen. Jeff Fahey plays the Peter Viertel character, the writer and narrator, but this is entirely Eastwood's film. His is a subtle, thoughtful study of a willful and headstrong man. It may not please the Dirty Harry fans, but it's certainly one of the best performances he's ever given. What made you do it? Because that story's been around for nearly 40 years now, hasn't it?
Right, it was written in 1953 as a book, and it was a good book then, it's a good book now. When I read it, I had not read it till recently, actually, a couple of years ago. But I thought at the time, I said, I wonder why nobody's made this into a movie. They had several scripts on it. But the sort of the accompanying plot or the accompanying plight of elephants and rhinoceros and various animals being destroyed in Africa, and I think the concern we have today was another aspect to it that I think is more pertinent today than it was in 1953 when it was written. The fact is, it's an obsessive character. If they sympathize with him, fine. They're not supposed to sympathize. They're supposed to disagree with him on some levels.
Yeah, but I mean, obsession in any individual, if the dog will let me conclude this sentence, is always fascinating.
We're talking now about preserving animals, but right now we're talking about shooting this dog in the background.
You didn't know Huston, did you, at all? Or did you know? No. So, but if I may say so, I thought your impersonation of his voice and his phrasing and his delivery was excellent. How did you come about that?
The way that Viertel had written it, the way when you get into the character, I think almost not knowing him was almost a blessing, though if he had been alive, I would have definitely sought him out and tried to get anecdotes from him. But I think not knowing him, it was really good because I got to approach him from a totally outside point of view. I did talk briefly with his daughter and briefly and quite a bit with Peter Viertel.
But you wouldn't emulate him in that he going off and gambling, shooting, womanizing while he's supposed to be working?
Well, at least two of those I wouldn't emulate him.
You're very unusual, Clint, in that most Hollywood stars, and certainly the big Hollywood companies, usually are reluctant to enter their films in competition at Cannes on the grounds that if they don't win a prize, the film is perceived as a failure. And merely by entering it here, it's perceived as an art movie which might damage the box office prospects. But that clearly doesn't worry you.
If Cannes wants to invite me to show the film, why not? If you don't win, if they run, I don't know, how many films they run here?
It's about 24, 25, I think.
Okay, that's a lot of films for 3 or 4 prizes or something like that, and I'm sure a lot of them are quite good projects. So I don't think it's anything detrimental to a film not to necessarily win the big prize.
But Cannes is not only about competition and prizes, it's also about buying and selling, making a deal, beggar your neighbour. And among the potential sellers and dealers are 2 new kids in town, Lance and Chris, with a script to hawk around. Lance, what precisely are you hoping to do down here?
First of all, we don't intend to actually make a deal. What we're trying to do is make people aware of projects that we are trying to tout for development of feature films. We've got 2 feature film treatments that we've got done with us. And we just want to make people see the type of work that we're trying to make, that we are thinking up towards a European market. We are thinking to what the 90s is meant to be about.
Now, that sounds terribly grand. Have you come down here with a huge budget to entertain and advertise?
No, we haven't got any money. We've come down with absolutely nothing. I think we're going to do Cannes around £300.
Let me get this clear. It is £300 each or £300 between you?
Between us. Between us.
But 2 coffees could take that in Cannes.
We don't expect to pay coffees. That's why we're with you, Barry.
Oh, great. I always get stuck with the freeloaders. Now, come on,
It's the art of freeloading, Barry.
how are you going to manage this? Because £150 each, I mean, you literally could get through that in a day.
We've organised meetings with we organise our meetings at very delicate times. They're usually at around 12 to 1 or 7 to 8. So we're usually catered for within the company bringing us out, because they usually like to eat at those times as well.
Chris, why do you want so desperately to be in the film industry that you'll come down here on such a shoestring budget?
To come down to Cannes, it's just a prime time to meet people while they're relaxed, while there's this whole town devoted to film. And it's much easier to meet people in Cannes than it is to meet them in London, because although they're busy, they're all in one place.
When's your first meeting?
We've got a good big meeting in 2 hours' time about one project of which they've been developing with us for 5 months, and it'll be the yes or no by the end of Cannes, I reckon, on that.
At which point I made an excuse and left these two young hustlers before they could hit me for dinner. Take note of the determined look I wear, for I'm on my way to do some serious and strenuous work. Well, here I am, busily covering the festival. You may think I'm just lolling about with my feet up, but not so. Because you see, all the big events around the Palais are covered on closed-circuit television, so you can keep up to date with everything important that's going on without ever leaving your hotel room. I mean, right now, for instance, they're showing an interview taking place on the beach. The only thing they don't do is to show the actual films in competition on telly. And I think I'll suggest they work on that for next year. Sylvester Stallone was not here in competition. He doesn't make the kind of movie you can consecrate, but he did show up to announce a new project and a change of image. Well, let's start with the film you've come down here to publish, Dead Reckoning. I mean, that's not even written yet, is it?
No, and that's just a substitute title, but what that'll be is, I think, a very fascinating film that'll deal with the future shock of ecology, because God knows the way we're heading, we need something to really heighten the awareness.
In other words, it's a green movie.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because you have a very apocalyptic view of the future 10 years hence, don't you?
Yes, because, God, I mean, I hate the way that people are misled and down a primrose path that it'll all be okay. It won't. I mean, at the rate it's going, things are just irreversible. The fact that animals are becoming extinct at an alarming rate. Extinct, over, finished, there is no more. Well, we can also go the way of the dinosaur. It doesn't take much. The balance is very, very, very delicate. We're a delicate organism.
Now, it's fascinating to hear you talk like this, because people who know you mostly as Rambo or Rocky don't expect you to be anything like as articulate.
People automatically assume that you are the character, that I am Rambo, that I walk around the bow and arrow. See, these are performances. The same way you change your clothes, you change the characters. And it's nice once in a while, because I haven't really done that many interviews where I get to express myself, and I probably won't do many more after this, because I think that an actor tends to repeat himself, keeps going in circles. The more he talks, the more he's going to dig himself into a hole. So I think a little mystique and a little social propriety there would be
said for it.
Yes, indeed.
I imagine we're not going to see you getting involved in another wedding in the near future.
You know what? Is suicide still illegal? Because it would be suicide for me to do that right now. I mean, I'll never say never, because I've proven myself a fool too many times, and the subconscious definitely sometimes rules the conscious. But I don't see it for many, 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 many years. I think I'm a better boyfriend than I am a husband right now.
That's why you're looking so happy.
That's what it is.
Tell me, what do you make of Cannes? You know that, what, 4 years ago you were supposed to be coming down here and you didn't come,
Yeah.
and they were awfully cross with you. Have you made your peace with Cannes?
Well, yeah, I'm going to do that today. I mean, I hope to go into Cannes and just move about and say, I'm sorry, but remember Libya and whatever, it was a whole different world 4 years ago. So sometimes it's better to apply a bit of temperance to your ego and say, okay, yes, I won't go there and get my picture taken, but it's a far, far better thing to do now than I've ever done.
And so he went walkabout in town. It may look as though he was mobbed by the crowd, but not at all. He had so many bodyguards around him that the crowd was in more danger of being mobbed than he was. Meanwhile, Arnold Schwarzenegger, upstaging Stallone by bringing his baby, was also around to promote a new film, one whose title seems to escape me.
It doesn't matter what question you ask. Let's assume you ask the question, Arnold, how old are you? I would say to you, I'm 42 years old. I said, but what was interesting was that when I started Total Recall, I was 41. It took so long to make this film, and when Total Recall comes out, I will be 43 this summer, and then by the time it comes out maybe will be 44, and by the time it comes out the video Total Recall, I'll be maybe 46, who knows? So Total Recall, no matter when Total Recall comes, you see how many times I got it in there? That's the art of selling.
I'm trying to figure out what the title
it's
of this
the
film
art of selling.
Also, you have recently become a father. That, I mean, I know from personal experience that makes a tremendous difference to your life. What difference did it make to yours?
First of all, having a baby brings a tremendous amount of happiness to your family. I mean, it makes, Maria and I, we were very happy as it was, because we love each other a lot. But I mean, having the baby be born, I mean, added a whole new happiness to our relationship. And since being our family, it's just fantastic. And to see this child grow up and every day learn new things. And so it is a great experience. And I think the only way it changed my life really was that I schedule things now in such a way that I bring them with me everywhere I go. Or I will be doing films more in Los Angeles than doing them maybe in Mexico City or so. So little changes like that.
Soon thereafter, the family Schwarzenegger departed, the baby apparently glued to her father's bicep. And on La Croisette, the glitterati assembled in their finery and very self-important to attend the gala opening of Dreams, the film by Akira Kurosawa that had been chosen to open the festival. You know, I really can't agree with Alan Parker about Kurosawa. Dreams, which consists of 8 sequences, each based on a dream that the now 80-year-old director has had at some time in his life, is not one of his great works, but it's still the work of a great filmmaker, full of magical images and quirky little surprises. In one segment, for instance, Martin Scorsese crops up as Vincent van Gogh, ginger beard, ginger hair, heavily bandaged ear, and sounding rather more like Vincent van Bronx.
Why aren't you painting? To me, this scene is beyond belief. A scene that looks like a painting does not make a painting. If you take the time and look closely, all of nature has its own beauty. And when that natural beauty is there, I just lose myself in it. And then, as if it's in a dream, the scene just paints itself for me. Yes, I consume this natural setting. I devour it completely and whole. And then when I'm through, the picture appears before me complete.
Essentially, though, Dreams is a green film. At this late stage in his life, Kurosawa is concerned with the way man's greed and selfishness are destroying the planet. Whatever it is we're doing, he wants us to stop doing it now. And the basic message is contained in 2 segments that deal with the aftermath of nuclear disaster. Here, just for a minute, you can detect the gloomy note of an old man's pessimism. But then hope returns in the final sequence, which suggests, very naively, no doubt, but at least optimistically, that perhaps salvation lies in a return to a simpler way of life. Dreams opens in London this week, and though it's not in the same league as Kagemusha or Ran, it's still a wonderful reminder of how good even a comparatively lightweight film can be when it's made by a master. You believe that dreams are the expression of one's deepest desires. Is that right?
Not only desires, but things like nostalgia or other deep feelings that you hide in the bottom of your heart. They come in shapes that you see in your dreams, and I have given examples in the films.
One very interesting aspect of the film is the casting of Martin Scorsese as Van Gogh. Why did you do that? Why did you choose him?
When I met Scorsese a few years ago, he was campaigning for the preservation of colored films because they were fading, and he wanted me to do something about it. He was very excited and passionate, and he also had a beard, which made me think of Van Gogh.
It must be difficult directing a director.
On the contrary, Directors understand very quickly.
You know, last night, when he was going into the gala opening of Dreams, the British director John Boorman was asked, what does Kurosawa mean to you? And he said, to me, Kurosawa is God. Now, do they regard you as God in Japan?
I'm going to take a plane tomorrow, and when I arrive in Japan, as soon as I go through the customs and stand on Japanese territory, I am a beggar.
A prophet without honour then, though not in the West, where he's still revered by all, except perhaps Alan Parker. Along with the closed-circuit telly, there's an endless mass of printed information. Every day there are 5 trade magazines in English alone, 3 British and 2 American. If you want to know who's in town and where and which film is showing and when, they'll tell you. And on top of that, there are all these film brochures and handouts. That's why each hotel room in Cannes has 2 beds. You use the second one to store all this publicity bump. I tell you, there's very little hanky-panky going on in Cannes. Nobody's got the space for it. And on the table here, you keep all the invitations to breakfast, lunches, dinners, suppers, parties, screenings, or at least half a dozen every day. And very nice too, as long as you always remember, of course, that in the end, you don't get anything for nothing. Every glass of wine, every crisp, every peanut represents another favour owed. In previous years at Cannes, the Eastern Europeans have kept to themselves, but now glasnost is everywhere, and the most bizarre party of the festival was held aboard a Russian trawler, where East and West met and drank and danced together, and all agreed that there was much to be said for a little decadence occasionally. But come the dawn and the hangover, and while the now suffering partygoers sleep off the vodka, Cannes gives itself a wash and brush up to prepare for the new day. At Cannes, films don't seem to have titles. They're simply identified by the names of their directors. Nobody ever says, have you seen Dreams, or have you seen White Hunter, Black Heart? They say, have you seen the Kurosawa? Have you seen the Eastwood? Have you seen the Parker? Have you seen the Tavernier? It's vaguely pretentious, but it's a useful form of shorthand and everybody uses it. So what the hell? I'm off to see the Loach. Ken Loach's hidden agenda was undoubtedly the cause célèbre and the scandal of Cannes. With typical Gallic mischief, the festival had chosen as the one British entry in competition a film that viciously attacks the British establishment. It is a political thriller set in Belfast, which deals with the Royal Ulster Constabulary's shoot-to-kill policy and general skullduggery, disinformation and dirty tricks by the British Secret Service. From a position way over to the left, it lectures and harangues us about the rottenness of our political system, and at the press conference it caused a splendid row between Ken Loach and indignant British journalists.
Northern Ireland has existed under a state of, the border has been preserved at the point of a gun. Belfast,
come on.
No, at the point of a gun for 70, it's existed for 70 years.
Wait!
No, not at all.
Mr. Walker, would you please?
It is, I'm afraid, it is a historical fact. It is a historical fact.
Well, guys, if you plan to start a discussion between the two of you, we're all going to lunch.
I suppose what makes it particularly sensitive at this moment is that it's the official British entry at Cannes and it's slagging off the British government.
Well, it's only I mean, it was invited by Gilles Jacob and the festival. And I mean, it's enormously important that we're here. For the film, it's important because people will see it, they will talk about it, and they talk about it often at a level which is more intelligent than the average British journalist, saving your noted presence, present company accepted. But by and large, in Britain, I mean, as you know, we only talk about Ireland in terms of suppressing terrorism.
I think that the film is not really dealing with the ILA. I think it deals with a scandal on Watergate dimensions. I think that the shoot-to-kill policy, the political assassinations, the police and military corruption, the activities of security forces will provoke people to say, well, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, and above all, let's make these people accountable to us.
Ireland is the subject that everybody sees and walks away from. If they don't see it, they must be blind. I say it is a guerrilla war within the boundaries of the United Kingdom. not to see that as a subject for film is perverse, to say the least. So it's a subject that you actually physically cannot ignore.
But no matter what else you may have heard, Hidden Agenda is not pro-IRA, and despite serious flaws in the plot, it is a pretty good thriller, with strong performances by Brian Cox as a kind of John Stalker figure, and Frances McDormand as an American civil rights lawyer who helps him investigate a shoot-to-kill murder. You may well disagree with it or even condemn it, but you won't find it bland, and at least it brings honest, albeit one-eyed, passion and commitment to a discussion of one of the most serious problems the country faces.
Paul was murdered, Mr. Carrigan.
Why would the police want to kill him?
I don't know, but they did.
What proof do you have?
None. But I do know what goes on here. Torture, paid informants, roadside executions, death squads.
What kind of reaction do you expect it to get when it opens in Britain?
I don't know what reaction it will get, really. I mean, I hope people enjoy it as a story, as a good story. I hope they find it engrossing while they watch the film. And then I hope when they leave the cinema, they start to think, well, is that really happening? And start to ask questions about it. And perhaps we can have a more sensible discussion about Ireland than we've had in the past. I mean, films aren't that important, really. They're only a small drop in the ocean.
Very true, but you don't say that if you're a wheeler and dealer, a mover and shaker. To such people, film, the product, is everything, and they gather daily on the Carlton Terrace to talk numbers and drink gin and tonic at £6 a time. By now, Lance and Chris seem quite at home in such a setting.
Just a treatment. We think we can come up with a recipe with help of certain people to package it into something else.
Yeah.
And what we want to find out is if there's interest from certain areas in this idea.
I've seen this sort of thing a bit too often before, and I think that, you know, we need to look for, and I say we, I mean, you know, we that work in the business, need to look for things different to this. Now, that's not denigrating. I'm just saying I don't think that the feature film market is the right market for this. I think the right market for this, because it's a good project, it's a good idea, it's well done, is the TV market.
You know, there's a lot of opportunities. If there aren't, you can make them. Make or break them. I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money. You've got the brawn, I've got the brain. Let's make lots of money.
Well, what do you make of Cannes several days later, Lance?
Well, it's cost us a hell of a lot more money than what we thought. People aren't spending that much money this year at Cannes for obvious reasons. There's not a lot of money going around, especially in this business.
We have clinched a lot of meetings when we get back to London to pursue what we started negotiating here, which is brilliant, really.
But Lance, have you had any definite concrete offers, or are you still getting definite maybes?
So far, over the week, I've raised just over £50,000.
Not bad for an outlay of £300. It could have been £314, but they made me pay for the orange juice. This year's festival buzzword is subtext. No matter how totally basic a film's plot might be, it always purports to have a subtext, some deeper philosophical or intellectual meaning that gives it weight. Sometimes looking for that subtext is about as worthwhile as panning for gold in Piccadilly. But one film that certainly had a subtext was David Lynch's Wild at Heart. One line in the picture sums it up: wild at heart and weird on top. It stars Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern as a young couple on the run from sinister adults. It's shocking, violent, erotic, funny, and it's split critical opinion right down the middle.
Lula.
Wow.
Baby, I got a surprise for you.
Hey, my snakeskin jacket! Thanks, baby! Did I ever tell you that this here jacket represents a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom?
About 50,000 times. I got us a room at the Cape Fear. And guess what? Paramount's playing at the Hurricane.
Stabbing and steer.
You know, what puzzles me is where a nice, respectable-looking chap like you gets these bizarre ideas.
Well, I got half of them, or more than half of them, from Barry Gifford's book called Wild at Heart that I got a hold of before it was released. And so I can't take responsibility for, you know, all the strangeness in the picture. But the thing I liked about it, one of the things I liked about it is that it's a love story set in a modern, you know, twisted, crazy world.
There are times when it looks very much like the other side of the American dream, that what you're saying is that in America, the yellow brick road doesn't always lead to the Emerald City.
I'm not saying anything about America, and really, again, you know, falling in love with certain ideas or a story and characters and living with them or in that world and trying to be true to the ideas and translate them to film. And it's such a magical, fantastic process that to kind of go in the reverse way and try to make a statement about something is, at least for me, it's not what it's all about.
You're obviously very much influenced by the 50s, aren't you?
Well, I love the 50s. There's a kind of a purity and a power from my idea of the 50s anyway. And even though Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart are present-day pictures, there's a mood from the past coming through in certain images and certain sounds and music.
This is your first time in Cannes, isn't it? Are you looking forward to the experience?
Well, I suppose so. I've been trying to get to this festival since I made Eraserhead, and to me, it's the best, you know, film festival in the world, and I wanted to come here and experience it and feel it. And you know, we all know there's no way to really judge a best picture or a best anything in film. But it's sort of in the spirit of the festival, you should be at least once in competition and go through the whole process.
As he stood up, I pointed out courteously that his shoelace was undone.
This is, for me, a good luck thing, Barry. About 2 months ago, I noticed that my shoe was untied, and I'd had a particularly good day. So since then, at least until after the festival, I've decided to leave it untied.
You mean it's been untied for 2 months?
For 2 months, solid 2 months.
And how lucky have you been? Have you fallen over?
I have just fallen twice, but I was not hurt.
But you reckon falling twice is lucky, do you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I hate to think what would happen if I tied that thing now.
Now, what if you win a prize here with an undone shoelace? Does that mean you're never going to tie your shoelace again?
No, but if I enter in competition here again, I will definitely leave it untied.
Now then, would the loose lace indeed be lucky for him at Cannes? Well, it didn't win him the jury prize. That went to...
Hidden Agenda, the Ken Loach.
Hidden Agenda, Grande-Bretagne, de Ken Loach.
Mr. Loach is actually on his way by helicopter. So,
il est absent.
At any moment, I'm sure he's going to burst in. And thank you all for this very generous award. Thank you very, very much.
But now, here comes the big one, the main prize of the festival, the Palme d'Or, and the winner is...
Wild at Heart, the David Lynch.
Le film américain Wild at Heart, Sailor et Lula. Sailor et Lula, de David Lynch.
To the great Bernardo Bertolucci and the rest of the beautiful jury, to Mr. Gilles Jacob, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've been trying to get to the Cannes Film Festival for 20 years. I can't believe what's happening. it's a dream come true. Thank you very much.
The cast, Cage and Dern, Isabella Rossellini, Diane Ladd and Willem Dafoe, comes up on stage to join the celebrations. The prize is won, and David Lynch need risk falling over no more. Until the next time. And until the next time, which is 10:20 on Tuesday night, from me and from Cannes, goodbye.